We'll call this meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, is there any changes to the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Open forum. If anybody would like to come up and speak. All right, we're on the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes, approval of bills and purchase orders, approval of the investments. There's a couple donation resolution. Resolution number 2021-10, a donation from the Joel Beer Memorial of $2,000 towards the Melrose ambulance. Resolution number 2021-11, a donation of $500 from the Melrose Lions, 2018 pledge towards the water tower lights. Resolution number 2021-12, a donation of $1,000 from the Melrose Lions towards the Riverfest celebration. Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On the reports, Stearns County Attorney. Janelle, would you like to? Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being able to come out and actually see people in person. We have 11 different cities that we work with in this way, and you're my 9th. So I've actually gotten out of the house. My husband's glad to shush me out. Let's talk about what we do as your city attorney. First, let's start with the letter that looks like this, which is the cases that don't go to court. We are required by law to have a program for first-time offenders, both for adults and for kids. And in the past, we've seen about 200 kids a year come through that could potentially be diverted. And this year, we actually saw that drop in half. And as you're going to see when we get to the juvenile numbers in my office, we saw those numbers pretty much across the board drop in half. When the kids aren't in school, they aren't having contact with the school resource officers, they aren't having contact with mandated reporters, and we did see that change significantly. But you had 6 offenders out of our kids that did stupid stuff and that went ahead and did their community service and worked their way out of it so that their first offense did not go on their record. We didn't have any adults this year, but we do want you to know that when this summer we will be able to do community work service projects for the city again. We weren't able to do those obviously last year, so it was kind of handy that we had less kids that needed community service to do. But if the city does have projects, please do let us know, because that's one of the ways that the kids go through diversion, is paying back to the community. So those numbers are down a little bit this year, but we did find that the adults who were probably working at home or had more time on their hands, more of them actually went through diversion than just paid their fine and went to court this year. We saw likewise a change in that under the circumstances. So then turning to the bar graphs, the colors, these are the ones that are your city misdemeanors that we do as your city attorney for the year. And I can tell you, you're the only jurisdiction out of the 11 that stayed right even. Everyone else has dropped pretty significantly. And here in Melrose, apparently Chief Moss decided to just keep doing what he'd been doing. And it's like I say, it's very, very comparable to last year for you. And when you turn to the second page, then that's what we do globally for the city of Melrose. The first are the cases that we're doing as your city attorney, specifically under contract, because you need somebody to handle those lower level offenses. But then when you turn to the second page, that's everything we see. So you can see that you had 20-some felonies this year. 8 of those are domestics. I can tell you that your officers do a nice job with those investigations. They are more difficult to do. We really appreciate that the help that they have. Felicia in the police department used to work in our office, so she knows what we're looking for. She knows before we even have to ask what kind of follow-up we might be working for. So it really has worked out well that when she decided to take a job outside our office, that she works here in Melrose. In fact, we have another one that did exactly the same thing in Albany. It's really kind of handy for us. So when we look at these domestics and the extra investigation that those take, we do appreciate that your city does a really nice job with those, and that we can always call the chief if we have questions, and it's a good interactive environment. You also had 3 DWIs, and we're going to talk a little bit about fleeing from the cops, which became amazingly popular in 2020. You added a few drug files, you're going to find those. You've got a good officer that I noticed her name a lot, Alyssa Engfer. Noticed her name a lot as I was looking at these felony files to review this for you this evening, and I complimented the chief on the good detailed work that she does, and we really saw a lot of her name come out in some of those higher level crimes, so we appreciate the work that she does. Because when you look at that last page, then that tells you what's happening across the county. We have, so you've got 20-some felonies, we've got about 1,200 across the county, so that tells you how few are coming out of your jurisdiction. And what we've seen with those in the upper left-hand corner for adult criminal filings, it would look like with that red number that we're dropping, we're not. What we did when the court system shut down is we stopped filing cases that weren't just going to sit there. We decided for people who have been involved, especially in property and drug crimes, having something hanging over their head that they don't know what's going to happen with it, when the Supreme Court says we're not setting those cases for hearings right now, we just held them back. And now, as things have started to loosen up, the sheriff's been willing and able to take people into the jail, and as things have started to change, we're siphoning those into the system. We describe it kind of like if you look at the criminal justice system as an interstate, we've got an on-ramp, and then we've got an exit ramp. And as these people come into the system, everything that anybody has with them in the system is all dealt with at the same time. So we had a plan for the property and drug offenders. Right now, our record is we cleared 8 counties worth of cases in 1 hearing, because we did it that way. We had to have the public defenders on board with that. We had to have the judges on board with that. But that way, when you get somebody in, that somebody's finally got him in custody somewhere in the state of Minnesota, then let's deal with that person all at the same time. Then they know what's going to happen. And we don't have people out there wandering around what's going to happen, wondering what's going to happen if they have any idea that they're not going to go to jail because the Supreme Court has said we're not moving those cases right now. So when you look down to the bottom and you see what kind of cases they are, you'll actually see that. Under person crimes, the domestic, the robberies, somebody breaking into somebody's house, those cases never stopped. So as you can see, those numbers are right up there where you would expect them to be. We continued putting those through the court system just like we normally would, so those numbers look the same. Same thing with weapons crimes. Unfortunately, we've seen an uptick in weapons crimes in St. Cloud. You might have heard about that. Literally, we have a subcommittee of the judicial system that's specifically looking at gun-related crimes right now. But on the property and the drug crimes, those are the 2 that the Supreme Court said we're not going to set for hearing right now. So you can see we just stopped filing them until we find those people, and they'll be eventually coming back into the system. The thing that I want to tell you stories about is those traffic felonies. If you have a traffic felony, that means you might go to prison, not just jail, like prison. And the amount of fleeing and the amount of wild driving that we have seen from people during the pandemic is frankly stunning. We've seen more of it than we ever did before. Chief Moss and some of his people have been involved in a couple of those. It's the most interagency activity I've seen since I was elected in 2002. It is common for us now to get a case into the office where I've got Sauk Center, Avon, Melrose, State Patrol, deputies, the whole shebang. Because if somebody took off from one of the stops in Sauk Center, everybody got involved in making sure that people were safe. We don't chase people who are doing crazy stuff, but we will find you. One of them here, actually, that ended up in Melrose, we used the drone, we used Avon's dog, and the fire department actually had to get this guy off the roof of a shed, would you believe? That's how hard we tried to find him, because he was driving very dangerously, the wrong way on 94, and that person had to be found. So when they all need to get together and find somebody, I can assure you repeatedly this last year that we did it. And it was literally the most interagency activity I've seen in a long time. And I'm glad to report that here in Stearns County, that goes well. Casey Jansky, once upon a time, used to be around here. He's the chief up in Belgrade and Bruton. When the trooper got assaulted out on I-94, he was the first one to respond. Because coming from where he was coming, as he's coming on to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, he knew the roads. And I can tell you from watching that squad video, that was pretty frightening to see what had to be done, but he was the first one there. And then when they got in the manhunt that ended up shutting down St. John's that day, you guys were involved, everybody was involved, and they were able to find him. And again, we use things like drones. There is a State Patrol helicopter that we use if we need to look for people. The canines work, but even the Melrose Fire Department actually got involved in that one because that just had to stop. So we're seeing a little bit different amount of that kind of activity, unfortunately. I think people are under the impression that they might not get caught, which is simply not true. But people think what they're going to think, and we do what we're going to do. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about juveniles, because as you see there in the child protection filings and the juvenile filings, those did just plain drop dramatically. Candidly, I doubt that there's that much less juvenile offenses going on. I think we are seeing some of the officers who may be handling it differently, but candidly, when the kids weren't in school, we do have some concerns on how this is going to go. So we're glad they're back in school so that we can keep an eye on them, so that they have people to talk to, so that if there are things that those mandated reporters pick up, and just with the kids interacting with each other, that we know about that, because that was very surprising for us. And I can tell you that what we're seeing here with numbers generally are pretty much what we're seeing across the state and in most part across the country. But we do have a very good relationship with your office. We've worked with Chief Moss since he was a line officer here and has came all the way up through. My forfeiture people especially appreciate you, Chief, and your understanding of what we can do and what we can't do in the forfeiture cases. And just always being able to call and ask a question. And we do have 8 of us that carry the cell phones 24/7. So I hope when you call, someone always answers the phone. But I ask that every time I go out, and people know that I'm going to ask that every time I go out. Because those calls don't come at convenient times. So we need to be available to people. Questions?
No?
I'm good. Thanks.
Well, thank you for all the hard work. We do appreciate it. Really appreciate our relationships that we have together with the county. It means a lot. So,
Thank you for having me.
thanks. All right.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For our monthly report for February 2021, in our traffic area, we had 11 citations, 84 verbal warnings, and 6 written warnings. This year, we've had 288 calls or requests for service in February, and we matched that from last year, so staying on pace there. We are at ICR 633. Last year, we were at 592, so we are seeing a bit of an increase in our call volume. What'll be interesting to see now is coming up with, we're at the 1-year mark where things started to slow down, shut down, so it'll be interesting to see the drastic difference, or if there is going to be a drastic difference for us with people being back out and about and things opening back up. So be something to see in the next couple months. We worked with 39 Agency Assist. I checked into why that number is higher than normal. We have some neighboring departments that have some individuals with mental health issues that are becoming violent or have violent tendencies. So we've been going to help with them to help calm those situations, and a lot of them are turned into unknown where they started in a place and unknown where they went to, so it's a little bit of a, I want to call it a hide and seek situation, but we try and find out where they're at so that we know that they're safe, at least at that point, and then get them whatever help they need, or get them returned to where they need to be so that they're safer than being out and about on their own, kind of thing. So that number's a bit higher than normal, and hopefully that trends back down again where we're used to, but we're always willing to help our neighboring agencies, and they do the same for us. So. A couple areas I want to highlight. We got warm weather finally, or again. Walkers and bikers, be careful when we're out and about in the community, because there are, just tonight alone coming up here, I think I saw 11 different people walking that normally walk, and now that it's warm, they're coming back out because they want to do it again. So just keep those extra eyes out for that. We have been seeing more vehicles with expired tabs on them. The DMVs are open again. You might have to wait a little while in line, but they're open. Online, by mail, either way you can get your tabs. And it's not just, well, they're a month old, 2 months old. We've had some from truly last year that are still hanging on their vehicles. So we're working with people as best we can, but at some point it's just a matter of, it turns out to be a ticket because it's just been far too long. They haven't made the effort. So those are kind of the highlights. Any questions for me at all?
Nothing specifically other than it's that time of year when the bow fishermen, we're starting to see the bow fishermen come out again. And I know I've talked to you about this in the past, about the, if there's anything, you know, just living on the, whatever, you know, lake or reservoir, whatever you want to say. You know, every year there's a lot of nights when, you know, they're out till 2 or 3 in the morning, get generator running, come right up against your property line. You know, they're shooting bows. Sometimes they're kind of a little bit rowdy sometimes. And the other flip side of that is they're taking, obviously, carp out of the water, which nobody in their right mind thinks that's a bad thing.
Mhm.
But looking at the situation here with our sediment issue, carp are, by their nature, they're bottom feeders, and they dig the bottoms up and stir up the bottom. And, you know, when we moved here on the river there 14, 15 years ago, bow fishing wasn't allowed yet. And then I think that first year they opened it up. And within 2 or 3 years, we hardly saw any carp out there. We'd see, you know, 500 to 1,000 in the fall bobbing in the water. Now you hardly see any out there. So shortly after that, we started having the weed issue. And my thought is, and you know, I'll go back to that, it's not a sudden impact by nutrient loading, or suddenly it's filling up with more sediment. I think the carp are gone. And so my question is, can we maybe entertain looking at a local ordinance saying, you know, no night bow fishing in the city limits? And maybe that's I don't know if the DNR allows that for local cities to regulate that or not, but I think there's all kinds of benefits to it. It's kind of annoying at night, and I think it would do some good out there for the water quality. So I don't know.
Yeah,
What
we'll
are
have to
you?
do some research on that, if that's a possibility or not.
Yeah, I thought I
Generally,
read
we can be more
somewhere.
restrictive on things, but
Yeah.
once you add those 3 letters of DNR, it always gets a little more intriguing
Right.
and interesting how
Right.
that ends up playing into things.
Yeah, and I thought I did some research on that and thought it was within city limits. It's up to the local enforcement body. So anyway, I don't know if that's something we want to potentially entertain, or what are you guys' thoughts on that? Just look into it, whatever. You're not a diehard bow fisherman that spends
No.
time on here?
I'm not, but I really don't want to wreck any of the, I mean, if there's people actually using it,
Yeah,
because,
right,
but yeah, I hear you out. It's loud and whatever, but
right.
I don't know.
Maybe just visiting with the DNR on ideas, just to know the true terminology, what works, what doesn't work, does it actually help? I mean,
Right.
it's maybe not a bad idea if you know, visit with them once, just ask them their opinions and stuff. I'm not wanting to change right now or anything.
No, not by any means. I'm just
Um,
wondering if it's something we
But
could look
just
into,
get
possibly
you know,
explore.
information and, you know, maybe visit with people a little more just to see what everybody thinks.
Yeah,
I'm
that
fine
makes
with
sense.
just looking at it a little bit.
I mean, I think at night is their time, I mean, that's the time that they can do it. I mean, obviously,
Right.
that's the easiest to see through the water, and especially this water. You can't see through it during the day. I mean, it's
Yeah.
brown, so.
And I'll forward some pictures I've taken to Colleen that, you know, 2 in the morning, your house is absolutely lit up and the generator's running out there. It's kind of quite annoying, so.
Right.
I mean, I've yelled at multiple of them, telling them, back up, you gotta be, whatever it is, 300 feet from the house, whatever, but,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, we'll look at it.
all right.
Let's visit with them.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. Lisa?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Planning Commission met on Monday, and they considered the Hinnenkamp variances. This is a single-story house at 322 4th Avenue Northeast. It was built right at the property line and also closer than the normal setback on the west side as well as on the north side. They're removing and replacing part of the home, expanding it, adding a pitched roof in place of a flat roof, and they requested several variances. The Planning Commission did recommend approval. There is one change to the conditions, which we can talk about when that is on your agenda later tonight. Last month, they had the Winston Street vacation that is scheduled for next month's agenda. The MATA met last week and had some conversations about the strategic plan, which we'll be bringing forward as that progresses. And Rose Park, we have a code enforcement violation that is scheduled for a court hearing tomorrow. And I believe Scott's going to talk more about that. That's everything I have.
All right, thank you. City Attorney report, Mr. Scott.
Yeah, in my report, just, I refer to it as Fifth Avenue Northwest, that's the Wentzman, and I was just reviewing the documents, putting them in final form so that, assuming the DNR has no objections, the council can approve them next month. There were just also some questions about alleys. There's old alley vacations. And when I mean old, I mean like 1907, old. And the city just didn't have good records as to, to document that, some of these old had been vacated, and in one case, people had built buildings across, and they were right. The alley was vacated, but, we just needed to find documents to fill out the records, and, So I spent a little time tracking some of those down. Even in '07, they were recording the vacations down to county, so we were able to get those and get those records for the city. Last thing, Lisa mentioned, yeah, the court hearing on the nuisance violation will be tomorrow afternoon. We're scheduled with Judge Hennessy. And, you could say that's the stage the council issued its order last September. It was not complied with, and so now we're seeking the court's enforcement order tomorrow. So after the hearing, I'll send Colleen an update and let her know what happened, and I'm assuming that she'll share with you gentlemen also. So we'll see where we're at. That's all I've got, unless you have any questions or concerns.
Just a quick question, like with management of the trailer parks are usually enforced more through the county, right?
Well, in my opinion, we've almost got too many cooks in that kitchen. There are state regulations, some of which are actually enforced by the state. There are county regulations, which are enforced by the county, and then the county often is then, the state gets delegated responsibility for enforcing some of the state regulations. Our regulations, we don't get to directly regulate the park.
Correct.
But the park is subject to the same regulations as any other part of the city. And so, the nuisance ordinance is of, general application across the city. So when we find a nuisance violation, whether it's in the trailer park or any place else in the town, but, trailer parks are meant to be licensed. That's a license that's issued by Stearns County.
I just wonder, they're in support of this also, right?
Yes, I mean, they're not directly involved because this is the city ordinance that we're enforcing. But, during the process, folks at the county were contacted and were a good resource, I think. Helping to, provide some information. And I don't want to leave like the county is leaving us hanging, because, I know that 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The county went through there and had some real issues with the licensing and with the conditions of the trailers. And they took on removing and demolishing a number of trailers out there. I mean, not just one or two, but a number of them. And and that was at the county's expense. And then they did the same thing like we do. You know, they levied an assessment against the property to eventually recoup their costs, but I'm guessing it,
I just, you know, not that the judge says, well, we think this should be taken on by the county and not the city. That's all.
you
I
know,
was
and
wondering.
they, from what I've heard from the folks at the county, because, you know, we're always hoping that maybe they'll be a little bit more aggressive about enforcing the state regulations and the licensing issues, because that's really where, you know, where their authority is. And from listening to them, there are a lot of these parks in Stearns County. It's like our bridge, you know, it's like trying to prioritize which one is the most important. And in talking with them, as bad as we think our park is here, apparently there are worse. That they've been trying to put a little effort into. So you know, nice to have a little bit more enforcement, but, you know, they have helped us in the past, and apparently it just seems kind of chronic that, you know, that there are these parks. The folks that have a lot of power for making a park a good park is the owner. You know, the state actually gives the owners a lot of authority for self-regulating, and it's a question of do you got a good owner? We've got 2 parks here in town, and I don't think anybody's ever had any complaint about the one. You know, I'd put my mom up in one of those, you know, homes up there. And see, and the difference is the ownership and the effort they're willing to put in to make it a nice place.
Yep. Okay.
Anything?
Nope.
Okay. That's all I've got then. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Scott. Engineering report, Mr. Mike?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we opened bids for the chip seal project, which we'll address later on the agenda. The bids for the 2021 street improvements are due in April, so we'll have those for you at the April meeting to consider award for that contract. The County Road 65 drainage, Gary kind of did the final inspection this spring, and we don't anticipate any problem with that, so we're going to do a final negotiation with the contractor and get that thing cleared up so we can get payment from the county. So the preliminary plan for the 5th Avenue storm sewer drainage, you recall there's a flooding problem around 2nd Street South and 3rd Avenue Southeast. We've got that plan put together. We haven't reviewed with the staff yet, but we will be needing a pond down at Craft Drive and 5th. So we'll be looking at the most, or the least intrusive place, I guess, to put that pond. And we'll be, once we review with staff, we'll bring it to the council, and then we'll have to meet with the property owners and discuss that. So we should have more information at the next council meeting. The river, the dam, road dam bridge project, RDB. We had a project team meeting, I think it was on Tuesday, discussed on the roadway portion of it, primarily when it was the area behind the buildings or the businesses on First Street where we're gonna realign there. The parking is pretty much set at diagonal parking, so it'll be head-in diagonal parking as you're heading east. We're gonna put a drive-over curb in there so the delivery trucks can actually back across in there and get closer to the doorways. We did discuss sidewalk in that block between 4th and 5th. Decided with the people going across that with vehicles, it probably didn't make a lot of sense to have sidewalk in there. So there will be a crosswalk at 4th Avenue and 1st Street, crossing over to the sidewalk on the north side, and then also at 5th Avenue from the south side to the north side to get onto the bridge. So I think that's about all for the roadway. The bridge, currently they're working on some scour issues for the abutment and footing depth. They're trying to get that footing raised up an additional foot from where they're at right now. If they can get that accomplished, that'll make a significant savings to the cost of the project. So there's a few hydraulic issues that they're still working on. They hope to have the 60% plans submitted for review early, hopefully by the end of this week, if not next week. So, and once we get the 60% plans, then we can submit permits to the DNR and for preliminary review. So that's all I've got, unless there's any questions.
I'm good. Guys, any questions?
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you, Talk to you in a bit. Colleen, City Administrator report.
So we continue to work with Representative Anderson and Senator Westrom on the legislative amendment to amend Section 1, Minnesota Statute 2020, Section 2978.71, Subdivision 50, which basically was the fire remediation funds that the city received in 2017. So the city received almost 1.4 million in actual fire grant remediation funds. And then as part of that, we also received sales tax exemption for certain types of building materials. Since that time, we have actually gone to the legislature once, and this will be the second time, and we've asked them to carry that over. We explained that COVID really had an impact on how we were going to develop that area. I had the opportunity earlier today to actually testify over Zoom in front of the tax committee to talk about this. If anything, this would be carried over and made part of the ombudsman bill. So it sounded like there was really good support. There were a couple representatives that actually said, you know, in small towns we need to do this, and it takes a long time to get development, et cetera. So I'm feeling, you know, cautiously optimistic that this is something that will pass. We'll see. So that's, from a legislative standpoint, what we're working on. The other thing that did happen under the American Rescue Plan is the city of Melrose will be receiving funding, federal funding. We do not know how much that is. It could be anywhere between $360,000 to $420,000. So we're not really sure where that's going to land yet. We're still waiting for also federal guidance on that. What we've been told, because I was participated with the League of Minnesota Cities a couple days ago when they talked about this, and there's several different ways that you can use this funding. You know, you can make direct payments to, for example, if your customers are behind on their utility bills, you can just forgive their utility bills. You can make direct payments to businesses. You can do, you can pay your administrator more money if you wanted to, if you felt like they spent more money during COVID. Actually, I'm sort of saying that tongue in cheek, but there is sort of this compensation in there, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, and then, but the other thing that you can use the money for is for infrastructure. Right now, it looks like it's just sewer and water infrastructure. It does not look like it's for any other type of infrastructure. So as I know more and as we learn more, I'll let you guys know. We're going to get 2 payments on this. One we should get in May, and then the other one, I believe, will come at the end of the year. So there's two times they'll pay us. We have until December of 2024 to expend the funds. So we certainly will talk about, you know, once we get the money, what you guys want to do with it. You know, when you look at the overall city and what's gonna benefit the community the most, I think that, you know, certainly business relief you can always do, or you can look at infrastructure as something that really truly benefits the community. So, and you know, there's strings attached, so we'll have to find all that out. It's still in the very early stages, but I just wanted you to be aware that that's out there, and we're gonna be working on that. And then the only other thing, the mayor and I were actually talking before this, that the League of Minnesota Cities actually puts out a City of Excellence Award. And this year they have what's called the 2021 Topical Award category for COVID-19 response. And basically it talks about how you as a city have responded to COVID. In looking at what the requirements are, I felt like we have done a very good job in terms of how we've dealt with COVID. We were one of the earliest cities to open back up after March. So we opened up June 1st, and we opened up earlier than a majority of the communities in the area. There are still some communities that are actually still closed, are not open to the public yet. I do not believe, and I could be wrong, and she's no longer here, but I'm not sure if the county is completely open. I'm not really sure where the county's at with that. But I think that that's something as a council that you did a very good job of leading that way in terms of having us be open to the public because of how we serve the public. And so this would be an award. It's $1,000. If we wanted to apply for it, I'm happy to do that on behalf of the city. So you guys can just kind of, you know, shoot me an email or anything. It doesn't need any sort of formal response from the council. But if you guys think that's a good idea, just let me know. And then the other thing I did want to mention, speaking of opening up more, the restrictions have changed. So now we have new guidance that was effective as of this week, Monday. And it basically opens quite a bit more back up for the community. So this room is an example. As you notice, we keep this room wide open. I would like to continue to do that for a while yet. I don't want to close these off into separate rooms, but we can actually let a lot more people be in here. Worship services is an example, I believe. There's no limits to what people can do with that. I think that, you know, there's other things. Now, the one thing I will say, the caveat with the worship is we do have a church that uses this city center on Sundays. And even though they may be open because it's not at a physical church, we have to fall back on the guidelines that we would have as a city. So I believe that I think there's at a capacity in these rooms, it's like 116 or something like that. I don't remember the number, but we can open it up more. So gyms, you know, fitness centers, that type of thing. So there's quite a bit going on, and it's kind of exciting news for everyone as we start to open this up. And again, as I point out, there is a work from home option, but we as a city, we are essential employees. So that is not something that would be applicable to us. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I do have some other items that I will cover as we get further on down the agenda.
All right. All right, we're on the action items. Resolution number 2021-8, resolution approving case number VAR-2-2021-101, application for a variance from the minimum lot requirements, R1 Single Family Residential Zoning District.
As I mentioned earlier, the Planning Commission did meet on Monday and recommended approval of this application. If you would flip open to the resolution, the second page of the resolution has two changes. The first is there's a list ending with item 9. They've added an item 10, basically stating the certificate of occupancy shall not be issued until the extra shed gets removed from the property. What this is referring to is they're exceeding their percentage of coverage, and the Planning Commission felt that that was acceptable because due to the proximity of the house so close to the road, if you add an extra story to the house to keep your percentage of lot coverage down, it is going to actually look more out of place because it's a flat roof structure right now, so adding a peaked roof almost doubles the height. So if you add a second story, that almost triples the current height, and they felt that it was more appropriate to just allow them to have a little more coverage on the lot. In saying that, there's 2 sheds currently, one of which is going to be removed after they finish the construction.
So there's a map right behind you if we want to.
Okay, sure. So, so this is the shed. Let's see, this is the shed that'll be removed. So you can see this, it's built right up to the property line, and then this is 13 feet. Normally that would be 25 feet. They're planning to take this portion here and remove it and rebuild. They're gonna set it back 6 feet, so it's less of an inconsistency or, than it is currently. So, and then that'll be largely garage with some housing space as well as part of it. But it does exceed just a little bit the percentage of lot coverage. They're going to be meeting the setback. The 6 foot is the setback up here, and they're proposing to be 7 feet. So they're going to be meeting the setbacks in the area that they're building. They're adding a portion, there's a patio back here. They're moving it right into this part. So they are continuing to build on this portion that is closer to the setback than it should be. But according to our code, they're allowed to do that as long as they don't go closer to the front facade or to the road than the existing facade. So the planning commission did, like I say, recommend approval. They found that they met all of the 3 areas that are criteria for granting approvals for each of the variance requests. So the only other change is to change at the bottom of that same page, the number 9 to number 10 as far as the conditions. Otherwise, everything is ready for approval. The planning commission reviewed the recommendation and the resolution, and they recommended that this resolution be approved by the council.
All right. So is there any questions? Can I get a motion to approve, please?
Are they fine with moving that, like that's, they're
shed-
fine with these
Yes,
conditions?
the property owners were fine with it.
Okay.
They're here tonight. I have.
So you're all good with everything the way it's written? Okay. I'll make that motion. To approve it the way it is.
Okay, so there's a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay. 2021 chip seal project.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the bids were opened on Thursday, March 11th for the 2021 chip seal project. 3 bids were received. We checked the bids for mathematical accuracy and tabulated. The bids ranged from a high of $66,822.11 to the low bidder of $54,233.99, which was Pearson Brothers of Hanover, Minnesota, and we are recommending award in the amount of $54,233.99 to Pearson Brothers. The engineer's estimate for this project was $73,513.55. So we're real pleased with the numbers that we've gotten.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, can I get a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you. Okay, 2021, 2022 League of Minnesota Cities Workmen's Compensation Insurance quote.
Yep, so the council to give consideration approving the quote received from the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust for workers' comp insurance for the period March 7th, 2021 through March 7th, 2022. The net premium costs for the upcoming period are $70,312, which is a decrease of about 13%, which quite frankly really surprised us. We've, over the last few years, had some claims, and so we were surprised that we got the quote lower, but what that means is you guys can probably expect a higher quote next year. But for this year anyway, for the time being, it is down, and the general fund share of that is $52,621, and the utility share is $17,690. So I would recommend that the council give consideration concurring with the Public Utilities Commission approving the workers' comp insurance at the regular premium option.
motion.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. Resolution number 2021-9, resolution committing funds for the 2021 wastewater treatment facility project.
So, as part of the grant that we received from the Minnesota Office of Budget, or Management and Budget, which is the 3.5 million bond that we received from the legislature last year, we are required to pass a resolution stating the city's utilities has financing dedicated and set aside for the project. Even though the funding is coming from utilities, because of the way the bonds are structured, the city is required to approve this. So attached is that resolution, I'm recommending that the city adopt it as presented.
Any indication on rates? Or,
1% is what we're
Okay.
doing, because it's the PFA that we're going to.
okay, good.
Yeah.
You making a motion?
I'll
to
make a
approve?
motion to approve.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Stearns County Seal Coat Project in Melrose.
Yep, so Stearns County will be completing seal coating projects in the city of Melrose. If you look up at the screen, that shows you the areas that they're gonna be completing. If the county does it and we as a city do not do any cost participation, then they basically kind of do the center. In years past, our past practice has been that we always participate with them because it only makes sense. It's more cost effective. We can get the shoulders and everything done at the same time. So the county at this time is estimating the city's portion at $38,000. But if the county ends up getting a bid, if it's any indication of how our bid went this year, I'm guessing the county's bid is gonna be very competitive as well. So that $38,000 is probably a little bit high as far as an estimate goes. So right now, we have $90,000 that was budgeted into our capital improvement plan for seal coating. You just approved our seal coating earlier, which was 54 and some odd cents, 54,000 something, which would leave us with $35,766 left in that capital budget. And Gary's here as well, and we would recommend that the city of Melrose participate in the cost sharing of the seal coating project with Stearns County.
Okay.
And that's where it's gonna happen, is on those roads.
Yeah, I was just thinking, real quick, we obviously can participate wherever we want to, on whichever portions of the roads, I would assume. Are these are all newly paved? But I'm looking at the map, 2 years ago? Okay, all right. Okay,
Picked up all the way to Esperance and then from Casey south to the four-way.
Okay.
County Road 168 school.
right. You know, I don't know how much more there is on the school, there's probably not a lot there, because there's,
They had it broke down and that
Yeah.
was $700.
okay, that's pretty minimal,
The bigger
okay.
portion is along like Main Street. South
Second
Road, like
or Central Road, or, yeah.
Bituminous, so
Yeah.
they're really center 24.
Okay,
And I believe they're gonna Fox Hill also,
oh, okay,
that's included.
okay,
And then they'll come back and they'll strike through crosswalks.
okay. Oh, they'll take care of all
It'll
that
just
too.
be latex paint, but they said they would maintain.
Okay. Sounds reasonable.
All right, can I get a motion to?
Motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Telecommunications escrow fee.
So the public utilities requires an escrow for telecom projects, and that escrow is currently part of the fee schedule that the city adopts every January. Or maybe you guys do it in February, December, whenever you adopt it for the year. And under antenna applications, it's currently $10,000. This amount simply is not enough. When we have cost overruns, we then have to bill the telecom, and we have a difficult time getting those paid. Case in point, right now, we have from 2018, just over $2,200 outstanding invoice that Verizon still has not paid us. Now, the good news about that is that they're wanting to do some significant upgrades to the tower on the north side. Well, we're not gonna allow them to do that until they pay their escrow. But what I would recommend, because we're just charging them kind of on this base charge, and it never seemed like it was enough, so I would recommend increasing that escrow amount to $12,000. So, and that's what the PUC is actually recommending as well. They approved it at their last meeting, and that's their recommendation coming forward to the council to just adopt it as part of the fee schedule. And it would take place effective immediately.
Clean, how do they get, I mean, what's the, like, how do they get behind on that we have to bill?
So what happens is we enter into a contract with SEH, who is one of our engineers. They're engineer for sewer and water side. And as part of a contract, whenever a telecom wants to do an upgrade, we have to send it to our engineer so that they check the structural, et cetera. But in the past, we only based that escrow on what we got charged from the engineer in their base charge. And as part of their contract, there's other charges in there that we never include in the escrow. And that's what I'm recommending here, that we include a portion of those charges. And never let this go below 1,000. If it goes below 1,000, we send a note to Verizon basically saying, you have to pay us more.
Okay.
The other thing I do want to point out is they're getting a letter. They require 90 days. We are going to be doing the North Tower rehab project. We want to do that as soon as we can. And Verizon has to come off the tower, and so does our utility SCADA system. So we're putting up a temporary sort of pole there. But as part of when Verizon puts their stuff back on the tower, there's additional upgrades they want to make both to the land lease below and the tower lease up above. And as part of the lease agreement, we negotiate higher pricing for that. So during that 90-day time period, my intent is to work with Verizon and get that lease kind of tied up based on what they're putting on the tower.
All right, can I get a motion to approve that escrow from 10,000 to 12, please?
So
Do
move.
you wanna add that, like, if it gets below 1,000, do you
Yeah,
have to
I
add
could,
that?
yeah, that's probably actually a really good idea. I mean, we can just have that as part of the application, but if you want it in the fee schedule.
Well, no, I just didn't know if we needed to.
I mean, I think it's
Approve
just-
that with the 12,000?
Yeah, I
or-
think that's just gonna be a kind of a best practice for internally, but the, you know, now that you say that, it's probably something we need to include on their site application. So,
So you're good with motioning that?
Yep.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. No old business, new business.
One quick item of old business.
All right.
You mentioned this during my legal report, but I just remembered it when Colleen was discussing the city's COVID response. The emergency resolution authorizing, additional powers to the mayor and the city administrator, it has expired.
yeah.
Built into the resolution, it ends today unless you guys decide you want to renew it. I'm not seeing any hue and cry, so I just as a reminder that that's done.
I was waiting for a little bit longer to mention it. Yeah. Good. All right. So, scheduling a meeting for the local Board of Appeals for equalization, April 15th, 2021 at 4:30. Looks like Bunker, I, and Justin are all certified. Travis?
Yeah, it's on my list of things to do.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Are you guys good with that one?
Should work.
Okay. Also a special meeting on March 31st at 5 o'clock. That's a Wednesday, right?
Yep, I
Okay,
believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. So, long meeting?
That one is just, that one is regarding if we decide as part of the RDB project to move forward with applying to LCCMR for funding, you guys would have to pass a resolution because that's due April 2nd.
Okay.
And the reason I didn't bring it up to tonight's meeting is because I'm still doing research. I don't want to apply for that and then have to go back and forth and say, oh, by the way, we don't want your money. So I just want to be really sure, I guess, is where I'm at with that one. So that's why, because I don't have the cost estimate from WSB, I wasn't comfortable bringing it for you tonight. But by the 31st, I should have that information. So it will be a
Yeah.
very short meeting.
Have you contacted them?
Yes, I
Directly?
talked to Becca Nash today.
Okay.
And she seemed to feel that, you know, especially based on given where our relationship is now with the DNR,
Yeah.
the biggest point is going to be trying to really, the environmental side of it. So
Right.
that's really what we're going to have to spend a lot of time on. The
Right.
problem also is timing because it's due April 1st, but it doesn't go into effect until July of 2022. If we move forward this year on a project, we can't go retroactive. So anything that we get from them has to be stuff that we do after that date. So.
Right.
So there's still some things are kind of moving parts, but Lassard Sam's is going to be the same way. It's just their deadline might be a little different, but it's all the environmental side. So that's why we're working through some of that right now. So that's why we'd have to have that special meeting. Not saying we have to if we decide not to do that, but it's out there just in case we need it.
Yep. All right, is everybody good with the meetings?
Yep.
All right, I'm good with it too.
We good?
The informational meeting, there's a utility commission from February 8th. Regular meeting minutes, unless there's anything else. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.